Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Cecilia Braekhus versus Ema Kozin fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon as well. You can request any kind of combat sport related content and I will try my best to get it out there for you guys. There has been plenty of content that has come as a result of it, and I do really appreciate all the support I've had with it so far. Of course, the link will be in the description. Thank you very much. Let's get straight in to this one though. So this is a kind of celebration event realistically, which is nice. I don't feel like many fighters have the opportunity to have an event kind of dedicated to them and have a fight to be able to kind of go out on and to be celebrated, by your home fans and by the crowd in which you've kind of worked hard to grow. And like I say, it's nice. And for Cecilia Braekhus, I mean, this is still a very tough challenge. Of course, I suppose it only realistically makes sense that she is bowing out in her retirement fight for a world title because she's fought for world titles for a tremendously long amount of time. I mean, I think she's had one non-world title fight in in between, well, since 2009, I think, which is pretty mental, to be completely honest. I know, the super welterweight division has been a bit of a division, and the welterweight division as well has been a bit of a division where it's had to be built up and it's had to grow with time and everything like that. But Cecilia Braekhus has worked hard in her career and she's done a lot to be able to promote women's boxing and to get it where it is now. Again, these divisions, the welterweight, the super welterweight, they're divisions in which, of course, back in 2009 maybe weren't the most stacked, but, now with the help of Cecilia Braekhus, she's been able to, put it on the map a bit more. And, she's been getting the respect she's deserved since, the Jessica McCaskill fights. But again, she's always taken any kind of fights available to her. She fought Vanya Habazin when she was, in a good position herself, and of course Habazin then went on to become champion. She's fought, of course, Jessica McCaskill twice, who at the time was looking like a real, deadly name in the division. Then, of course, fought Terry Harper, who, of course, she went to a draw with, and obviously, Terry Harper has moved down a few divisions and has gone on to become a world champion. So, again, that's a good win as well, and she's been willing to go in with anybody, but at the same time she's had to work incredibly hard, and she's like I say, deservingly getting this main event in Norway with the two titles on the line. And it's nice to see that it's in Norway because she was arguably kind of one of the main reasons as to why boxing was unbanned in Norway, or you were able to box in Norway throughout the early part of her career. She wasn't able to box in her home country. I mean, I could only imagine how difficult that was for herself to be able to get sparring, to be able to get training in. She would have had to have gone and, lived in other places and stuff like that. Obviously, I think, she spent a lot of time in different countries fighting. I think quite a few of her early fights were in Germany, but, she's been able to really work with Norway, and like I say, eventually got that ban lifted in 2015. And yes, there hasn't been a tremendous amount of names that have come from Norwegian boxing just yet, but it's given the opportunity for fighters and just people in general to get involved. And again, I'm always an advocate of that. So, I appreciate the work in which she's done. And like I say, yes, this isn't a massive event. Yes, this isn't an event in which I'm sure is going to be talked about a tremendous amount outside of, people that really know the boxing game. But it's still, like I say, a good kind of celebration event, which, like I say, I think is very much deserved. She, of course, had this fight scheduled to fight Kozin back in 2024. I don't know if that would have been her retirement fight then, if that fight had gone ahead. But, of course, it didn't go ahead. Kozin had some visa issues in which Braekhus has actually kind of brought up and said, and maybe slandered a little bit and said maybe wasn't actually the reason or anything like that. Again, I'm not entirely sure. Instead, she went on to fight Cornejo, in which she was able to get a good win there. But, she's had a career full of highlight moments. I mean, of course, she was undisputed champion in the welterweight division, and, then she's moved into the super welterweight division now and is still, fighting for world titles, fighting against the elite of the division. And yes, maybe you look at the names in which she is fighting at times, like Kozin here, and you go, she's not that elite. She lost convincingly to Clarissa Shields, and yes, she did lose convincingly to Clarissa Shields, but still, there is only limited names in the division to fight, and she beat Hannah Rankin when Hannah Rankin was, the home fighter, and maybe a bit of a controversial close decision, but still, Kozin, I think, has improved from the loss to Clarissa Shields. She was, a lot younger then. She's still pretty young now, realistically. I mean, Braekhus is 44 and Kozin is 26, so there is a significant age difference between the two, which is, again, another reason why you have to respect Cecilia Braekhus for taking this fight, because, like I say, there is such a significant age difference, and this could be an easy way to be able to kind of pass the torch on and still be kind of celebrated her career. But at the same time, I think she's very much game and kind of ready to come and really give it a go for this fight and give it her all in this fight. And Kozin, of course, like I say, she's coming off with that win against Hannah Rankin. That was about 2 years ago, though. Of course, like I said, she had visa issues, so the fight didn't happen against Braekhus last year. But again, she's not really made a tremendous efforts from the sound of things to actually push for herself to fight against anybody else. So again, I'm not sure if that's gonna, make the fans get behind her at all, and I'm not sure if the fans are really gonna be rooting for her to win if we're, just expecting an kind of unactive, champion. Again, that's just not something in which I'm sure fighters or fighting fans are gonna realistically want to see. Of course, like I mentioned, she went and boxed Clarissa Shields in Wales. That was kind of a tune-up fight for Clarissa Shields to then get the Savannah Marshall fight, which of course she eventually did. But it was a strange thing to see, she was on the undercard of Eubank Williams, and it was in Wales, and just to see Clarissa Shields against Ema Kozin in Wales boxing on an undercard, it's just, when you say it out loud, it sounds a bit strange. But of course it happened, and again, definitely wasn't a good look for Kozin. It was convincingly, Clarissa Shields kind of beating her up and showing that there is a skill level there. But still, like I say, I do believe that she has shown improvements. To speak about both fighters a bit more individually, Braekhus is someone who fights with a nice pumping jab. She's a physically strong fighter who will definitely be, willing to push you back. She is, somebody who's willing to let her hands go in close and will walk you down. Yes, the movements, the reactions, all these things which you're kind of expecting to slow down when you are 44 years of age, it's happening. But still, like I say, she's able to walk you down. She's able to kind of stop the jab quite nicely as well, just by, blocking it, just little subtle movements to be able to slap away at the jab. And again, it's composure, it's relaxed kind of nature. She's got a hand staying high, she maintains a nice distance, she changes levels quite nicely. She's got a decently strong left hook. I wouldn't say that there is a tremendous amount of power in the punches in which she's throwing, but again, like I say, there is a physical strength there, which you can definitely see. And, coming up in the division, you can see that that's not really kind of made a difference. I think it was a smart move for herself to move up in the division. She kind of just knows how to avoid or not get hurt a tremendous amount whilst using minimal energy, realistically. And that's what you kind of have to be doing. Again, when you kind of speak about the age and stuff, that's going to increase the longevity of your career. If you are able to, hit and not get hit, or hit and take minimal damage, and also be able to, continually box consistently throughout the entirety of the fight and get away with it, then, that's good. Obviously, not every fighter is going to be allowed to, fight at a slow pace and be able to get through it, but she's been able to have a lot of success with it so far. And again, it's not that she's cruising, I don't think. I think, like I say, she's just able to, she's just got a high fight IQ and is able to kind of know how to not get tremendously hurt, but not use a tremendous amount of energy either, to also be able to land her shots and, put damage on her opponents as well. I also do think, though, that she does have heart and she does have a chin at the same time. Negatives about her, I think she has started to lean her head off to the right a bit when she's throwing and stuff, which again is a little bit of a bad kind of tick or trait. She's flat-footed. Her reactions and her hand speed have slowed, as well as kind of the movement of her feet as well. If she does get in a bad position and she needs to get out of the way, I don't think her movement is that good. Her head movement is pretty much non-existent. She's a big target to land on for the most part, and doesn't really want to take a backward step. And if she is fighting off the back foot, she can struggle to get her timing down, and like I say, it isn't really that effective. The feints in which she's trying to go for, again, mixing in with the speed as well, isn't really something in which I feel like is that effective. I don't feel like fighters are really falling for them feints, and that was something in which Clarissa Shields was able to do really well against Kozin, and Kozin was reacting to him, but I just don't know if they would have the same effect coming from the speed of Braekhus. She lunges in, she like I say, struggles to get her timing down. I think she now just definitely prefer that slower tempo. I think she struggles against fast movers. I think her agility is limited, and like I say, fighting off the back foot in general, I think can be a bit of an issue alongside getting her timing down. Kozin as a fighter, I think she has got fast hands. I think when she is throwing, you can see that good level of youthfulness and speed when she's throwing. She's willing to press forwards and definitely won't give up and give in. Again, referencing that Clarissa Shields performance, she definitely could have slowed down a lot and really just kind of tried to cruise out the fight and just accepted any kind of damage or covered up. But she really didn't do that. She kept trying to come forward. She kept trying to let her hands go, and she was able to not really do too much, but again, showcase that she does have that heart herself. She'll reset to the center nicely, which again, with that movement, she could possibly put Braekhus in a couple tough positions. She's got a nice tight guard. She's got relatively solid feints herself. She tries to, slap away the jab and kind of stop the straight shots herself. So might be able to halt a bit of the, straight shots in which Braekhus throws. She's got, I believe, a good chin. I mean, I think she took some really big shots. Again, referencing that Clarissa Shields fight, and even in that last fight of hers, she took some quite big shots as well. And I think she was able to, keep walking forwards. She, like I say, is willing to let her hands go. I think she's got all right straight shot combinations when she actually uses the straight shot combos. She's able to maintain a pace pretty well, whether that is somebody who's wanting to fight at a high pace, like, again, Clarissa Shields was able to do, or somebody who wants to fight at a bit of a slower pace. I think she can match any kind of pace and fight quite well at it. She keeps her jab coming, and she can push you back herself as well. Again, that would be interesting to see if she can do that to Braekhus. Negatives about her, I think she's can be a bit tense and have nervous movements, which can be, wasting a bit of energy. And I think when she's throwing, she's a bit hesitant and not kind of fully committing to her work and falling into her shots quite a lot. And again, like I say, that's restricting her. She's a southpaw fighter for the most part, but squares up quite a lot when she is throwing and can be made to reach as well. She can be outboxed. Her accuracy, especially at a mid-range, again, I think is quite a big problem. She is open up to the body and doesn't really do enough, in my opinion, to be able to actually gain the respect of opponents. I think she's kind of quite willing to go and, have a war in close, but again, it's actually if the other opponent is allowing that to happen. If they're not, then she can have her own problems. She doesn't get her timing down that well herself. Her head's on the line. She can, charge in a bit like a bull at times if things aren't going her way. She takes a lot of punishment, and I think she does kind of eat a lot of straight shots as well. Who do I think is going to win? I think that Cecilia Braekhus is going to be able to win. I think she's going to be able to win via a unanimous decision. I think if she can get her jab going, even if it's not landing cleanly, I think it's still going to restrict Kozin from coming in. And if, she can just continuously restrict her from coming in, stay relaxed, stay calm, Kozin, I think, is going to come in with a tremendous amount of respect for Braekhus because of course, this being her farewell kind of fight and her being the main focus and everything. And I think if we see that kind of reaction-based, Kozin who's not committing to the shots, that's throwing a jab from tremendously far away, Braekhus can be able to, work her way down, walk towards her and try and pin her, down for a couple of moments to be able to throw a few exchanges. And if Kozin gets in, maybe Braekhus might be able to time her onto a shot again. I don't really rate either of theirs timing, but again, you would think with the experience that Braekhus would have a little bit better timing in that aspect. So I think Braekhus is going to be able to win. Again, I think she is going to showcase a bit of a higher level of fight IQ to be able to showcase she is, the better fighter. And even at 44, she has still been able to have some good fights in more recent times. Again, reference that Terry Harper fight in which she had, which yes was a Terry Harper who really wasn't on her best, but that was still an aged Braekhus, and she was able to nullify her for the most part. And again, that was a good performance for her, and probably one of the best names in her career realistically as a win. So again, I think she's going to be able to get a unanimous decision. It's going to be a nice unanimous decision. So I think she's also going to be very determined to go out there and put on a good performance in front of her home crowd as well for a final kind of showing. I don't think she's just going to bow over and, let Kozin get the win because she knows that she's, retiring. But then I think she will retire. I mean, she said no matter what the result is, she will retire. So realistically, you probably should be rooting for Kozin for this fight, for the state of the super welterweight division in the women's boxing scene. It would be quite bad realistically if there is, just two vacant titles, because I'm sure that they'll probably just book Kozin to fight against somebody else again for the vacant titles. But, maybe a new name can come in and can try and take some of the vacant titles. But again, I like this as a good moment to be able to end off, get the belts for Braekhus and let her retire on top, which, of course, a lot of fighters aren't able to do. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.